Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most consequential mistakes in history.
Even 20 minutes after the disaster, the controllers in the tower still have no idea how serious things are.
Number 10, the 2024 CrowdStrike Incident.
It's hit transport, with air passengers and their luggage having to be manually processed, delaying flights. Trains have also been affected.
Before July 19, 2024, few people had ever heard of CrowdStrike. It's amazing how much damage just one day can do. CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company based out of Austin, Texas, that caused about $10 billion in damage on the morning of July 19th. CrowdStrike made an update to its Falcon sensor software, but a bug caused the software to crash.
Officials in Europe were already getting a grasp on how bad the issue was. Germany's cybersecurity chief warned people it would be a long day.
Systems running Microsoft Windows crashed, resulting in the largest outage in world history. The results were devastating and disrupted nearly all aspects of daily life, upending banks, hospitals, air transport, and retail. It just goes to show how fragile our tech-heavy existence truly is.
Ambulance services across the country have reported a surge in demand as a result.
But if you have an urgent problem, you should contact your own GP surgery, either in person or by telephone.
Number 9, Pickets Charge.
March!
Confederate General Robert E. Lee made the biggest mistake of his life on July 3, 1863, when he ordered his troops to charge on Cemetery Ridge. There were several flaws in Lee's plan. Union General George G. Meade had anticipated Lee's attack on the center of his lines rather than the flanks, and concentrated his defenses there.
Now Pickett gave the order. Up, men, and to your posts. Don't forget today that you are from Old Virginia.
The charge exposed Confederate soldiers to heavy artillery and rifle fire, and the Army suffered catastrophic casualties. It effectively crippled the Confederate forces at Gettysburg and forced Lee to abandon the battle and retreat from the North. With this one simple change, the tide of the American Civil War permanently shifted, all to the detriment of Lee and his forces.
What's happening? I can't see what's happening to my boys. What's happening to my boys?
Number 8, the Cedar Fire.
It's gigantic. You never imagine it's as big as that until it happens.
Imagine accidentally starting a fire that burns over 270,000 acres of land and kills 15 people. The guilt would be unimaginable. Sergio Martinez was a novice hunter who got lost in the Cuyamaca Mountains of Southern California in October 2003 and started a fire to signal potential rescuers.
Afraid he was going to die in the wilderness, he finally set a signal fire, which got out of control.
But the flames quickly spread to the nearby chaparral, and he lost control of the fire. The low humidity and Santa Ana winds exacerbated the destruction, and the fire burned through 273,000 acres of San Diego County. Nearly 3,000 buildings were destroyed and 15 people lost their lives. Martinez was given 5 years probation and 960 hours of community service.
If you take a look down Fairbrook here, Fairbrook Place, this is just something you probably see in a movie. That's the only way to describe it.
Number 7, Germany invades Russia.
In the summer of 1941, Hitler orders a surprise invasion of the Soviet Union, catching his ally completely off guard.
Back in 1812, Napoleon tried invading Russia. It didn't work. Like, it really didn't work. Over 100 years later, Hitler made the same mistake, and to equally devastating results. The entire world watched with bated breath as Nazi Germany invaded Russia in Operation Barbarossa.
Join your German comrades. They understand your suffering and will care more for you than your own officers.
It was a catastrophic military blunder, owing mainly to insurmountable Soviet strength, the vastness of the territory, and the brutal winter conditions that crippled German forces. Despite having the largest invasion force in the history of warfare, Operation Barbarossa was a monumental failure. The Soviets successfully repelled the Germans, leading to massive casualties and ultimately turning the tide of World War II, and for that matter, the entire 20th century.
If Hitler wants a war, Stalin will give him one.
Number 6, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
126 people were on board at the time of the explosion.
Some jumped more than 75 feet into the ocean.
A multitude of factors went into the Deepwater Horizon explosion and oil spill. A central mistake was the failure to correctly respond to the signs of impending disaster. Pressure tests indicated that the well was not properly sealed, but the readings were misinterpreted.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Deepwater Horizon. It's on fire. We've had a major explosion. We need assistance. It's on fire!
This error was compounded by a rush to complete the drilling operation, driven largely by cost-cutting pressures, leading to the decision to proceed with the operation despite warning signs. The sequence of failures ultimately triggered the calamitous explosion that killed 11 people and sent 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico.
Meanwhile, live cameras on the ocean floor show the ferocity of the ongoing leak.
Number 5. The Exxon Valdes oil spill.
They were completely overwhelmed. Coast Guard didn't quite know what to do.
Before Deepwater Horizon, the Exxon Valdes oil spill was the largest in American history, dumping more than 10 million gallons into Alaska's Prince William Sound. But this accident was far less complex and is attributed almost entirely to human error. Shortly after midnight on March 24, 1989, the tanker ran aground on Bligh Reef, puncturing 8 of its 11 cargo holds.
When we got on the radio, he said, well, how big's the hole? I said, well, it's big enough to drive our boat through.
At the time, Captain Joe Hazelwood was below decks, sleeping off, quote, 2 or 3 vodkas he had consumed earlier. Furthermore, the crew was overworked and exhausted, contributing to third mate Gregory Cousins driving the vessel into the reef. Part of the blame also reportedly lay on the Exxon Shipping Company for failing to maintain the ship's collision avoidance system.
You can see oil like a boiling cauldron.
Number 4. The Tenerife airport disaster.
Look at it out there. I mean, this cloud just rolled right onto us. I don't think anybody has the minimums now.
This disaster on Spain's Canary Islands in March 1977 remains the deadliest accident in aviation history, costing 583 lives. Los Rodeos Airport was congested due to a bomb explosion at Gran Canaria. Exacerbating this was a dense fog rolling into the airport. KLM Flight 4805 took off in the fog and crashed into Pan Am Flight 1736, which was still taxiing on the runway.
It feels great to be alive. I'd be lying if I said anything else.
An investigation found that the accident resulted from critical miscommunication between KLM Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten and air traffic control. Ambiguous and non-standard wording led Veldhuizen van Zanten to commence takeoff without proper clearance, resulting in the tragic collision.
When I got out on the ground, I could hear people screaming and yelling and all. Within about 5 minutes, you heard absolutely nothing. There was no noise at all.
Number 3. Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.
As recorded on E-207 and E-204, the first visual indication that the anomalous plume penetrated the external tank was seen at 64.66 seconds as an abrupt change in the shape and color of the plume.
Roughly 40 million people tuned in to watch NASA's Challenger launch into space in 1986. Unfortunately, the launch was plagued by freezing temperatures. Engineers were worried that the cold could compromise the integrity of the O-ring seals in the shuttle's solid rocket boosters. The cold made the rubber less resilient, leading to a weakened seal which could allow hot gas to escape the booster.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded. Flight director confirms that. We are looking at checking with the recovery forces to see what can be done at this point.
Engineers at SRB manufacturer Morton Thiokol recommended against launching, but after internal discussion, management gave the go-ahead. Challenger launched, and the O-ring failed just as predicted, causing the shuttle to break apart and killing all 7 crew members.
My job began just at the time that this tragic accident occurred, and I was not permitted to have emotional feelings about it.
Number 2, the sinking of the Titanic.
What did you see?
Iceberg, dead ahead, sir!
Numerous factors went into the sinking of the Titanic. The crew were warned of icebergs in the vicinity several times that fateful day on April 14, 1912, but these warnings were largely ignored. Not only that, but the Titanic was traveling at a reckless speed of 22.5 knots through the area, relying solely on the crow's nest to spot impending obstacles.
Why are they turning? Is it hard over? It is, yes, sir, hard over.
This was done mainly to bolster public image, as Atlantic liners had a reputation for being fast and on time. As a result, ships often traveled at full speed and treated warnings as mere advisories. But in this case, the iceberg was spotted too late, and the ship was going too fast to avoid it. Roughly 1,500 people lost their lives.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications.
Number 1. The Chernobyl Disaster.
At long last we have arrived. 1:23:45. Explosion.
As anyone who watched the masterful HBO show would know, Chernobyl was an accident waiting to happen. And happen it did on the morning of April 26, 1986. The nuclear plant was ironically running a safety test and pushing the reactor to its limits. Unfortunately, operator errors and inadequate safety protocols caused a catastrophic surge in power inside of the reactor.
No one in the room that night knew the shutdown button could act as a detonator.
This, combined with cheap building materials, led to a massive steam explosion, which ruptured the reactor vessel and released a substantial amount of radiation into the atmosphere. The disaster cost untold lives, damaged the surrounding area, and cost hundreds of billions of dollars, making it the costliest disaster in human history.
And one big problem which Western scientists see in Soviet plants is the lack of a containment building. When all else fails, there's no outer shell to hold the radioactivity in.
Do you remember where you were when you heard about these? Let us know in the comments below.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.